let's talk about Andy Reid. I don't know how we're going to tie this into the Niners, but I don't care. I mean, we're all thinking about Andy Reid right now, and he's one of the guys that's up there with Kyle as like the genius of the geniuses. And honestly, I mean, I think anyone that was picking the Chiefs, one of the main reasons was Andy Reid with the bye week. Legendary with the bye week. And the guy, he looked catatonic. Now, he's going through a lot, and I feel like I would probably be as shell-shocked if I were as he was if I were in his shoes. But that happened on Thursday with his son. That game plan was done by then. So something else is going on. There was a terrible performance all the way around. What did you think of what Andy Reid did or didn't do?
Yeah, I thought it was super rough. I thought Andy Reid was just terrible. I thought their game plan. Look, I only saw it on TV. I have to go back and watch and learn. But it felt like Andy Reid at the end of the first half was just like, crap, I got nothing. This isn't working. The screen pass, they're all over it. They're all over my adjustments. And it felt like the second half was, all right, Patrick, just run around and go make a play because this isn't working. And this is where Andy Reid, it feels like you have an offensive line that's horrible. You're going up against the best front four in the NFL this year, or one of them. They're in that conversation. And you're going against a defense with a lot of speed. Why this was the game to run the ball, and this was the game to try and run the ball, and you weren't going to have a lot of success running the ball, but you had to keep the defense honest. And he screwed themselves over by just spreading it out and asking Patrick Mahomes to do everything, because this was not the game to do that. You could,
if you have Mitchell Schwartz and your typical offensive line, they're built to do that. But this offensive line couldn't do that. You wanted to help them out with bodies.
Right, and Andy Reid's usual adjustment to bad offensive line play is his screen game. Really great screen game. Well, they tried it at the beginning, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers ate the screen game for breakfast. I think one of the ones, Shaq Barrett actually sacked Mahomes before he could even look to throw the screen, and he just dumped it off, and I think he threw it straight into the ground. And then the other one, the screen got knocked down, and then there was one more. I think there's 3 screens I remember, and the other one, Devin White was just all over it and was basically going to hit the running back before he caught the ball, and it was an incompletion. So the screen game was not working.
But let me come back to what you said a minute ago about the run game, because to me that's key. What Bulls figured out was to do 2 deep safeties all game, and for a layman, basically what he's saying is run the ball. I dare you. I know you don't want to run the ball, because when you play 2 deep, you're a man down in the box. You're vulnerable to the run, and what he's saying is, I know you don't want to run the ball. You run the ball a token amount of times to keep us honest, but you want to throw. So we're going to play 2 deep, take away the deep stuff, and then say, if you want to average 7 yards a carry with Clyde Edwards-Helaire, go ahead. And they did. And they did average 7 yards a carry with Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and still only gave him 8 carries. Ridiculous. They weren't down that far.
I think they played 2 deep safeties in that game 82% of the time, I want to say. They played 41% cover 2, 25% quarters, and 17.4% 2-man. So that's all straight from Matt Bowen. So they played 2 deep safeties the whole time. And Edwards-Helaire was having success running the ball. And, I understand game situation got them out of it, but they didn't look committed to running the ball from the beginning. And the game was not over in the first half. And they didn't come out in the second half and ran the ball. And that was his big problem. And Andy Reid just looked like a guy who was shell-shocked. Like, oh, Bulls is all over it. Well, yeah, because all he has to do is rush 4 and double Tyreek, double Kelsey, and you got nothing. And his answer, usually Andy Reid, right? The big thing with Andy Reid, and the reason I picked the Chiefs, is Andy Reid's usually got something. He's got something new. He's got something creative. He's got an answer that the NFL wouldn't have seen coming, that Bulls wouldn't have seen coming, and he would have something. He didn't have an answer in this game. And I know they tried stuff. I know they tried the screen game, but the answer shouldn't have been just make Patrick Mahomes run around. I don't know what the answer is, but usually Andy Reid has one thing.
I know what the answer is. Hold on. No, here's what the answer is. Football.
It's run the ball.
It's run the ball. You can't pass protect. It's run the ball. You spent a first-round pick on a running back. You have tight ends. Get out of this spread formation that's killing your backup tackles and run the freaking ball. It was clear that this offensive line was overmatched early in the game when it was close. It was predictable that they'd be overmatched. You're going against Jason Pierre-Paul, Vita Vea, Ndamukong Suh, and Shaq Barrett. It's serious defensive line. What did you think was going to happen? And the running game was working. They're playing two deep. They're inviting you, man. And he didn't do it. Kyle would have. Sean McVay would have.
Sean Payton would have. He just should have been. He just had to be committed to it. It's not even run the ball and try to win the game with your run game. It's just give something that's not going to get Patrick Mahomes getting killed every single play. And it's unfortunate that he didn't do it, but it's the first time I've seen Andy Reid just on the sideline look shell-shocked. Like if he just looked like a guy when it hit 21-9, he just looked like a guy, or was it 21-6 and then 28-9?
Yeah. I forget.
But it was 28-6. When it hit 28-6, he just looked like a guy that said, I'm out of answers. He got me. I got. And it felt like that.
It's just interesting to see a guy who was strutting around all year and against the Niners look so meek. And it made me think, if it weren't for those miraculous, phenomenal 3 drives at the end of the Niner game, what would Andy Reid's legacy be? Now, to his credit, he doesn't have to answer that question because he pulled that off. But seriously, he is a one miraculous half of a fourth quarter away from having a totally different narrative. Totally different narrative. He'd be the guy who blew it twice with Patrick Mahomes. Because it's not Mahomes' fault.
No, I don't think so.
It's not.
I don't think you could have played better if you're Patrick Mahomes.
This game was won and lost in the trenches. Time for the Niners to invest more into their O-line for once. They're so invested in the D-line. That's great, man. And they tried with the O-line once with McGlinchey. It didn't work out. That doesn't mean you stop. And maybe it will work out. Maybe McGlinchey had a down year and he'll come back 315 pounds, just yoked and ready to play. Or maybe not. I don't know. Keep trying. Keep trying. If they take an offensive lineman with the 12th pick, that's fine by me.
I do agree this game was won and lost in the trenches, and I think it was underrated that the Chiefs' defensive line with their blitzing and with Chris Jones and Frank Clark, who's usually really good in the playoffs, they can usually get a push and dominate some plays. And they had the one stop in the goal line on 3rd and goal and 4th and goal, but for the most part, they got pushed around in this game.
Hold on. Sean had a question. He paid $5 to put this in your face. Just clarifying, Vish, you think the best D line in the league wasn't held the entire game?
I'm not saying that they weren't held. I'm just saying that Joe Vinovich's crew doesn't call it, and that's the reality of the situation.
Is that what you're saying, Vish? Okay. That's
what I'm saying.
That's what he's saying. Hey, deal with it, Sean. We appreciate the donation though, but that's what Vish was saying. I'm on Vish's side on that one. The difference, and also, hold on. I really love the denial that the Chiefs fans are going through right now, blaming the refs, because that's step 1 of the Super Bowl hangover, baby. Niner fans know it. You go through it. You go through, oh, we didn't lose that game. The refs cost us. We'll be back next year. We missed it.
It's the easiest excuse to attach to as a fan. And the funny thing is, if the Chiefs think they can just run it back and everything, they're going to have to make some foundational changes to their team because they're over the cap right now. And there's some very good player that's going to be a cap casualty, whether it's Tyrann Mathieu. I don't know who it's going to be. And it's going to be super interesting because now Brett Veach, your draft classes, they're going to be put up to the test on where's the depth going to come from with this team. So it'll be super interesting how they move forward.
I think in 2022, both Fisher and Schwartz will be free agents. And what I've been saying about the Chiefs since we started doing the show is I think pretty soon they're going to be the Seahawks, which isn't the worst thing you could be. I mean, they have a winning season every year. They make the playoffs every year. But what's interesting about the Seahawks is they went to the Super Bowl back-to-back years. They could have gone 3 years in a row. They went real close to going 3 years in a row.
Yeah.
They win it the first time they go with a young Russell Wilson, not making any money, like 24. They go back the next year, lose on the next play, and you're thinking, man, this team's going to be there all the time. And then he gets paid, and he hasn't been back since. Similar thing happened with Aaron Rodgers. I expect the same thing to happen with Patrick Mahomes, even though I do think he's the first or second best quarterback in the league. It's the way the NFL's set up. Do you think they're going to fall off like that, or do you think that Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs are going to find a way to stay on top?
You don't know, right? Yeah. You don't know. Like Brett Favre, another example. Won a Super Bowl, then went back to another one and lost it. And everyone said Brett's going to be back. He never went back. So it's they said that about Russell Wilson. He'd be back to a lot more. Aaron Rodgers. So you have no idea. I think the big advantage for Kansas City is that they have Andy Reid too. So you know that they're always going to be right in that conversation, right in contention. But you've always brought it up, right? Because there's a guy in their division who they just hired, Brandon Staley, and they have a ton of talent in on their roster with Tom Telesco, who's one of the best drafters in the NFL. And that's Justin Herbert, who in my opinion just had maybe the best rookie season ever. When you take into the fact that he didn't have a rookie minicamp, he didn't have a minicamp, he basically started his first game with zero preparation, like not even knowing 5 minutes before the game. They told him he was starting, and he broke the touchdown record and had, in my opinion, by every metric, a top 10 quarterback season. And so I think that maybe the Chargers stay healthy. Maybe they load up their roster this year because they can, because Justin Herbert makes next to nothing. That's where it becomes trouble, because Mahomes might be better than Justin Herbert, but Justin Herbert with a much better team is going to beat Patrick Mahomes with the worst team.
We see it every year. So it's going to be interesting. I expect the Kansas City Chiefs to come back to earth a little bit, and I think people
realize that. Yeah. And that's the number one test, right? The biggest benefit, or the biggest thing, the biggest shining light in Brady and Belichick and what they've achieved in their careers is that they won with so many iterations of different teams. It wasn't the same core that they won with. Right. The first time it was Lawyer Malloy and Richard Seymour and Willie McGinnis and those guys and Ty Law. And then the next time it was with Rodney Harrison, Brady, similar core. Then they came back and they won with Darrelle Revis, Brandon Browner. So they've won with all these different iterations of their team. Well, this is going to be the test for the Chiefs now, because it won't be the core of Frank Clark, Chris Jones, Tyrann Mathieu, Mitchell Schwartz, Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, and Travis Kelce. That's going to be that team.
No, the constant is going to be Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. That's it. Everything else changes.
And Tyreek Hill, I think.
And yeah, maybe. But again, this is what the NFL wants. This is the way they set up the league. They don't want dynasties to dominate for half a decade like the Warriors did. They want to break the team up and have intrigue. And if you can find a new way to build a team and compete, great. That's what the Patriots did. But you're not allowed to keep the whole team together. It's just we've seen it a million times. It's the way the league wants it. They want parity. So that's the way it is. Real quick, Sean, I'm going to answer your question. I know that I missed a bunch of questions. I'm sorry. If you donated and asked a question, if I missed it, ask it again in all caps. Don't spend any more money. Ask it again, all caps. I'll find it. We'll answer it. Sorry about that. Sean, those Curry threes didn't work for the Squads. That's how I look at it too. They're like a three-point shooting team in basketball. They want big plays. They go downfield. They throw outside the numbers. They don't take the gimmies. They don't take the layups. Of course they held. Kermit the Frog was hopping from lily pad to pad. Niners, he said, my legacy. Look, Sean, I couldn't follow the whole thing, but you're hilarious. And Kermit, you're the best.
I didn't understand a word of that.
I appreciate you. Yeah, I guess he's saying that Mahomes holds the ball a long time. He throws downfield. Of course, the Chiefs held. Well, hey, man, I'm not a Chiefs fan. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, the faster you come to terms with the fact that they held and they didn't call it is just the longer. I mean, you just have to come to terms with it. Yes, there was holding in that game. They didn't call it. It is what it is.
It is what it is. We have some all caps questions coming in that I trust were donated questions earlier. So real quick. Yo, Grant, Dak just followed Washington and was left out of Cowboys hype video. Is that true?
That'd be an incredible. I have no clue, but that would be an awesome fit for Dak Prescott. He deserves better than the Dallas Cowboys. Anything anti-Dallas Cowboys, I'm all here for it. And Dak Prescott is too good of a man, too good of a player to play for the Dallas Cowboys.
And I always like a team poaching a player from a rival in a division. Make yourself better while making a division rival worse. It's always a good move. And he's familiar with the division. He's played those teams every year. If he could go to Washington, that would be a great move for him and for Washington. And if Martin Mayhew can pull that off, good for you, Martin. All of a sudden, you're making moves that John Lynch hasn't made. Wow. Hey, do you, Martin? Do you?